You know what I keep thinking? We have 4 years of this. We have 4 years of this. Now, that's bad for the impact on people, and that matters. And then separately, it's interesting to think about the people who are tasked with defending the Trump White House. It's something they've tasked themselves with. They don't have to do that, but they choose to do it. How are they going to do this for 4 years? Eventually, right? Eventually you have to give up. No, probably not. But some of them are slowly cracking. And Dagen McDowell, a Fox Business host, actually started freaking out on air about the Trump economic questions and how people at the White House aren't getting back to her. So watch this, really interesting, and I have a bunch of other related items to go through. If you appreciate the show, please do click the subscribe button.
Say this, and I wasn't going to say it, but again, I used to co-host with the transportation secretary, and like
Howard,
the transportation
who's that?
secretary,
Duffy.
Oh, I forgot.
Shame on you. But some of the people in communications at the White House, in the Treasury, will not respond to the show, trying to just book anybody to talk about this economy.
So you're saying
they won't even answer the show. But Scott Bessent goes on one of the lowest rated shows on another network. I mean, you could open the window and shout out of the window in the middle of New York City.
He did speak with Kudlow at the economic club.
No, I know. I'm just saying that if they want to communicate.
Not responding to me, though. What about me? I don't care about Koho. What about me? I'm me, and me special.
With the American people, then.
Well, he's trying to communicate to the market.
So I'm calling him out.
Here's the thing.
Like, you know what? The people who work for these Treasury secretaries need to answer a text message.
By the way, I know
it's shameful.
I know that Howard is the.
I'm not talking about Howard.
Is the Commerce Secretary, but my point is, he's trying.
Yeah, except for when you said the wrong name, though. You didn't know.
I know
it's shameful.
I know that Howard is the.
I'm not talking about Howard.
Is the Commerce Secretary, but my point is, he's trying to like soothe the market, and he did a horrible job doing it.
Well, we've much more on these markets coming up.
I do love that whenever you get something wrong and you go, no, trust me, I know. I was kidding. Okay. I was seeing if Jane. See, Jane, I was seeing if you knew who the Treasury Secretary was. And we don't know why Jaden's upside down. That happened again. It's a little technical glitch. But I was just checking his knowledge. I love when people do that. And then it's not just there. So she's upset and sort of a little bit of a freak out there. But it's causing a CNBC host to say, I don't care if this loses me my job. Trump's policy is insane.
Taking there.
What you said, and Steve, maybe you saw the headline or the piece in the Journal as well by Greg Jensen of Bridgewater, said the trade war will pound stocks and high asset prices require a large U.S. capital surplus. We don't have that. And so everyone's trying to add this up to say the math doesn't make sense here to have all of these things happening at the same time.
I'm going to say this at risk of my job, Kelly, but what President Trump is doing is insane. It is absolutely insane. It is about the 8th reason we've had for the tariffs. And now he's saying he's putting 50% tariffs on Canada unless they agree to become the 51st state. That is insane. There is just no other way of describing it. And the trouble, Kelly, is that it shows there are no bounds around President Trump.
Who is this gentleman on screen sitting in front of a grassy knoll for this interview? I guess that's probably a green screen or something, but it's a very interesting backdrop he chose.
Describing it. And the trouble, Kelly, is that it shows there are no bounds around President Trump. This is very different from the first administration, where there were people around him who seemed to, I don't know what the word is, but smooth over some of the edges now. And the other thing that's not talked about, Kelly, is what's going on within the administration in terms of how they're treating the Constitution and laws. I think all of that is bad for the attraction of capital. And
yeah. Steve Leisman. That's a bummer. That is a bummer for last name. But I appreciate that he says at risk of losing my job. I don't know why that would put him at risk of losing his job at CNBC, but he felt that he needed to say it. And then he's thoughtfully explaining that Trump's policy is insane. The National Review, somewhere, if I can pull this up, said Trump's reckless war on Canada. These are conservative outlets. Here, the National Review writing, none of this is good for U.S. business, which is getting whipsawed back and forth almost every day by the president. I have not heard the term whipsawed. As for Canada as the 51st state, it now seems to be more than trolling. If Trump is serious, it is unfathomable that we are threatening the sovereignty of a fellow NATO country, a friend that has repeatedly fought and bled alongside us. If we indulge the hypothetical and Trump somehow impoverishes Canada into submission, it would create a restive, resentful region of the United States where there presumably wouldn't be a lot of Trump voters. More than that, if they think Canada makes it hard for them to win the national popular vote, did I say Canada, Jaden? I say Canada. Okay. If they think California makes it difficult to win national elections, New York, California, huge popular vote contributions, obviously, because they're massive states. And if they think that and the huge electoral sum that comes along with that makes it difficult, Canada would make Republicans obsolete as a political party, because Canada as a whole would not be voting for Republican politicians. I can tell you that. But maybe Trump hasn't thought that hard. But a conservative outlet there making that statement. So who's defending Trump? Well, billionaires like Kevin O'Leary on CNN saying this.
The recipients, but also the farmers that are there able to purchase from. That's the main reason it's a a Department of Agriculture.
This issue is not going to go away because it's very contentious. But when you cut in any organization, government or private, it's very demoralizing. It's traumatic, and it gets lots of bad press, as we're doing right now. But that's why you cut 20% more. I think Elon's not cutting enough. Cut 20% more now. Get your spreadsheet out. These are the names. Whack everybody, and then 20% more, as we do in the private sector every day and have done for 100 years in private equity, and hire back when the organization gels. That way, the demoralization only happens once. You don't want to cut multiple times. More whacking.
Kevin loves whacking.
Let me just can I explain to you that this is when running.
You don't need to explain it to me. I know how it works.
But no, you don't, because
actually I do. I've done it multiple times.
But yeah, that's in the private.
I do it daily. I whack daily. You don't have to explain it to me. Kevin knows I whack.
Private sector, and you cannot run.
This is worse than private sector.
You cannot run everyday government the same way you run the
fat dripping with waste government.
I'm not talking about fat dripping with waste government.
What do we have?
If I told you in the South right now in red states, do you know the number one cause?
What does this have to do with red or blue?
Can I finish my question? Do you know the number one cause for children underperforming in schools right now?
Bad educators.
They're
hungry. As a former.
No.
Let me finish. You're talking to the wrong guy.
Let me finish.
I actually, my whole career was in education.
That's my point of bringing that up to you.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you had things like the free and reduced lunch program. You had the summer lunch program.
Yes.
You had programs that were expanded so kids could actually. So I'm not arguing with you about your expertise in the private sector, but what I am saying is that a 20% cut or whack, you're cutting from Allendale Fairfax High School and Birmingham High School.
Okay.
You're cutting from places that really matter.
You want to talk about high schools in America? That's what I did for 14 years.
I'm so sick of that. So make an argument, Kevin, other than whack and whack and whack. We get it. But that's not a catch-all term. Great point by the other CNN commentator there, which is if you're swinging the sledgehammer, you don't swing a sledgehammer. Why am I saying that? If do you swing? No. Then you're going to end up hitting people who absolutely cannot afford to be hit. And so, no, this cut for the sake of cutting business is ridiculous. It means you haven't thought enough about this. It depends on what you're cutting. And so when you start talking about the guts to the Department of Education, a great point by Sellers there brought up. When you feel hungry, how does it affect your focus? Writing here, in a pre-pandemic survey, nearly 60% of children from low-income communities said they had come to school hungry, and the majority of those kids admit then it makes school difficult. Of those children, 12% are too distracted by their hunger to be able to tackle their evening homework. And teachers can see the effects of hunger as well. 80% observed the negative impact of hunger on concentration. 76% saw decreased academic performance. 62% saw behavioral issues increase. 47% noticed children getting sick more often. And so he just casually goes, well, no, cut. You end up cutting stuff that no one in the right mind should think, like support for hungry children, that we should cut. But hey, maybe a better spokesperson. Yes, we're coming back to this clip, regular viewers. Okay? Look, we've watched this 3 times now. Shut up. Here is McCormick, the Republican congressman, trying to justify the cuts to funds to schools.
Would you support getting rid of, school lunch for vulnerable kids and breakfast and Head Start, for example, and getting rid of childhood cancer research? Do you support that? And what do you say to your constituents? I want to follow up on that question too, because I didn't hear an answer from you.
Sure. So I'm an ER doc, and I know that philanthropy is where you get most of your money for childhood cancer research, for example. And it's not just you look at what the president just proposed, a $500 billion spending bill on AI to produce cancer early detection in the first stage on most body parts. That's his spending bill where he wants to increase cancer research. So it's just about what part of the money it comes out of. When you talk about school lunches, hey, I worked my way through high school. I don't know about you, but I worked since I was, before I was even 13 years old. I was picking berries in the field before we had child labor laws that precluded that. I was a paper boy. And when I was in high school, I worked my entire way through. You're telling me that kids who stay at home, instead of going to work at Burger King, McDonald's during the summer, should stay at home and get their free lunch instead of going to work? I think...
Yeah, so that's one way to defend it. Not really compelling to me, but maybe people who hate children would like that stance. I don't know. I don't know what group there he's trying to appeal to. At a different part, I don't have the clip here, but Kevin O'Leary was asked, wait, why are we starting there, or the dismantling of the Department of Education? And schools rely on funds, disproportionately red states, by the way, that the Department of Education sends their way, and that is funded then through states that pay more to the government than they get back, mostly blue states. And so you would be cutting off necessary grants to these schools that provide basic necessities for children, and they're all for it. But you're saying we have to do this whacking and cost saving. Why not start with contracts to big companies that could maybe deal with it? Why not start with not cutting taxes for wealthy folks more and maybe increasing them a little? Because that could also address our debt problem. But we're starting with low-income students are going to be impacted in schools. We're starting with the Department of Education or USAID. It's indicative of unserious approach to this problem. Then you have Kevin O'Leary here saying that Elon is a hero.
No, Elon put himself under, he's like an ant under a microscope. He's doing something that's been so needed for so long. He's just simply saying, look at what I found here. Look at what I found here. Look at the waste. Look at the fraud. Look at, and you
they're doing a terrible job. The thing about that clip,
you don't have to do anything about it, but he's pointing it out. This guy.
Well, first of all, we should say this.
He's a hero.
He's a
friggin' hero.
He is, quote unquote, he is a friggin' hero, Kevin O'Leary says. Let's just keep that documented somewhere for when Kevin tries to desperately run away from his support. One other thing I want to show you, Hakeem Jeffries, about their targeting now of Social Security, where they'll lie about waste and fraud, but that's going to become the justification for dismantling of programs, or at least cuts to programs. And Social Security, it has to concern you when they start telling lies about fraud in Social Security, because what is that going to justify? And here, Hakeem makes a really good point.
But that's not what this effort is all about. This bill will unleash fury on the American people. It will facilitate the ongoing effort that is currently underway. The average Social Security recipient in this country receives $65 a day. They have to survive on $65 a day. But you want to take a chainsaw to Social Security. When Elon Musk and his tens of billions of dollars of government contracts essentially makes at least $8 million a day from the taxpayers. If you want to uncover waste, fraud, or abuse, start there. Don't start with the $65 a day that Social Security recipients receive from their earned benefits, from their hard work throughout their entire lives. Start there.
And it's something we've been saying a lot. I reference priorities with school meals. Here you have another example of it. It's so weird that big companies that get federal funds, you're not looking or finding fraud there. Isn't that so weird? Their made-up fraud only seems to happen. It's not, again, if you're a MAGA viewer, I'm not saying there's no fraud, but they're distorting, misstating, and lying about the extent of fraud. But it only seems that hardworking, in many cases, low-income Americans are the ones doing all the fraud. It's never the powerful big companies, ever. And he doesn't start there. He doesn't start with people who maybe could afford the cutting off of their spigot. It has to be the people who need it the most. Because why would Elon hurt himself or people like him? Share your thoughts in the comments. Support the show. Get the members only bonus show by clicking that join button below.